The rain started. And so did everything else. My name is Jacob Wright. 3 months ago, my life was falling apart due to divorce, job loss, and debt. When an old buddy from Oregon offered me a position at Sunset Valley Mall, I pounced at the chance like a dying man. "You're not afraid of the dark, are you?" he inquired playfully over the phone. I laughed back. What could be so terrifying about deserted retail malls? Sunset Valley Mall resembled a typical American retail mall from the 1980s, large, slightly run down, and smelling of plastic and old carpets. My boss was Rick Carter, a former Marine with icy blue eyes and a burn scar on his left arm. He escorted me into a small security room with a row of black and white monitors on the wall. "Here's your new home for the next 6 months, he growled, tossing the packet onto the table. "Read this first." Carefully. The folder had a typewritten list of 5 items. The paper was entitled Nightshift Rules. I looked over the list. 1. At 1:11 a.m. hang all mirrors in the restrooms. If you see something in the reflection that isn't behind you, step outside and lock the door. 2. Store number 13, formerly Toys R Us, is consistently closed. Even if you hear a baby wailing, do not go in. 3. If the date October 31st, 1987 appears on the cameras, turn off the monitor for an hour. 4. Never eat food left in the cafeteria after 3 o'clock. 5. If you see a woman in a red dress, go to the security room immediately and don't come out until dawn. I looked up to Rick. Is this some kind of joke? His attitude was serious as he said, "The last guy who thought that was gone a week later." All we discovered was his phone. It had a tape on it. He hesitated, and you do not want to hear it. At midnight, I was left alone in an empty mall. The first several hours passed smoothly as I made my rounds, checking the store doors. At 1:05, I went to the restroom near the food court. Remembering the guideline, I removed the newspaper from the basket and hanged it over the mirror. When I returned after washing my hands, the newspaper lay on the floor. I took it up and glanced in the mirror. Behind me, in the reflection, there was a woman dressed in red. I spun abruptly around. The toilet was empty. My heart was racing as if it wanted to burst out of my chest. I rushed out of the toilet, slamming the door. The next day, I resolved to investigate what transpired at the mall on October 31st, 1987. In the local library, I discovered a fire report. Asterisk, Sunset Valley Mall tragedy. A fire at a movie theater killed 13 people, including children. Caused by improper electrical wiring. Melanie Carter, 25, was among the victims. Asterisk, I froze. Carter. Could it have been a coincidence? That night, I asked Rick, "Did you know Melanie Carter?" He grew pale and said, "That was my sister." He pointed to his scars, saying, "She tried to save the children." What happened to the guard who disappeared? Rick stared at me. He broke the rules. They are all breaking the rules. What if I? Then you will meet her in person, he interjected. And, Jacob, she does not like to be disturbed. That night, when I made my rounds, I heard weeping from store number 13. The door was slightly open. "Who's there?" I said, getting closer. There was no response, but the light within flickered. I was breaking the rule because I was intrigued. The door creaked. Inside, the dolls were placed in a circle, as if they were expecting something. And in the center was a doll with its eyes gouged out. I felt someone breathing on my neck. "You shouldn't have come in here." I raced away without looking back. The next day, I determined to discover more. At the local library, I discovered an item from 1987 entitled Sunset Valley Mall Tragedy. Fire at movie theater kills 12, including children. One among the victims was a young woman wearing a red dress. The date of the fire was October 31st, 1987. Now I realized why the cameras displayed that date. Tonight, I saw her. The woman in red stood by the fountain, gazing at me. I switched on all of the lights, but she didn't leave. "What do you want?" I asked, feeling a cold crawl up my heart. She held out her hand. It was the identical movie ticket. Suddenly, an alarm broke the calm. The security door opened on its own. I recognized the smell, burned skin. They discovered me about 6:05 a.m. I was sitting in the corner, holding a burning doll. Rick said I shouted something about a fire, but there was no fire. I'm writing this from a psychiatric facility. But I understand the reality. They are still here. And they are waiting for the next one. If you discover this message, do not go to the night shift at Sunset Valley Mall. Story 2, New York. February. Night. I was standing on the Grand Central Terminal platform when a snowstorm closed me off from the outside world. My name is Marcus, and at 24, I believed I had my life figured out. Night shifts protecting the Pet One office complex, a 3:15 a.m. train to my Queens studio, a snooze till midday, and so on. Not ideal, but it was preferable to working odd jobs. However, something went wrong that night. The Pet One building was unoccupied as usual. A 30-story monster of glass and steel, where only the cleaners and I remained after 5 o'clock. I recognized every creak in the floor and every flicker of a defective light. But today was different. The ventilation system buzzed, as if someone was attempting to breathe through congested lungs. The air was thick and tasted coppery, like if someone had bitten off a battery. When I opened the windows, they misted up again, like if the building was breathing on me. By 3 a.m. the snow had grown so terrible that I could hardly find the metro exit. When I arrived, the sole notification on the screen read, "All flights have been canceled due to weather conditions." I'm trapped. The platform was vacant. The lamps flickered, like if they were ill. Water trickled somewhere, and every drop reverberated like clockwork in a deserted metropolis. Then I heard a whistle. Out of nowhere, distant, piercing, as if from the previous century. Behind it, the repetitive clatter of wheels and the hiss of steam. Impossible. But suddenly a train appeared from the darkness of the tunnel. Not a modern subway train, but a vintage steam engine in red and black, with gleaming brass embellishments. The automobiles behind it were built of dark wood, with windows that reflected the light too many times, as if it wasn't me shining, but rather my reflections. The door opened. The conductor walked out onto the platform. Tall. Too tall. In a 1920s outfit that absorbed light rather than reflected it. His face was pallid, and his eyes were practically translucent. "Last train to Crossroads Junction," he remarked, his voice gentle yet deep that I entered. The door closed behind me with a dull click, like to a coffin lid. The air was heavy with the scent of ancient books, leather chairs, and something else. Delicious. It appeared that flesh was decaying under the floor. The carriages inside were spectacular, with crimson velvet, dark wood, and metal that shimmered gold under the light of the chandeliers. However, as I stared longer, the details grew more distorted. The velvet on the seats was very soft, almost lifelike. It shifted slightly when I touched it. The wood on the walls bore veins that resembled veins. The bulbs in the lamps pulsed like hearts. Passengers. They sat unmoving. A man wearing a 1920s suit with a top hat and a cane on his lap. His hands were glassy, like if cut from ice. A woman wearing a 1950s outfit with red lipstick and pearls. Her eyes did not blink. They were excessively glossy, like if saturated in oil. A guy wearing 90s pants and headphones around his neck. His fingertips scratched the seat but did not leave any imprints. Neither of them was breathing. I felt a huge jolt. The train was going. Outside the window, the black passage had suddenly opened. In its place, caverns. Not natural. Carved. Bas-reliefs adorned the walls, depicting thousands of twisted faces uttering the famous cry. Their mouths were apertures through which black liquid flowed. The ceiling gleamed. Mushrooms. Blue, purple, poisonous yellow. They surged like they were alive. Their light reflected in the windows, and I noticed my own reflection, but not one. I have many of faces. One was older. Another had no eyes. The third had a grin that I did not have. I turned aside. The first infringement was, "Don't look out the windows." But I'd already looked. They had noticed. The passengers turned their heads. Not all of them. First, consider the woman in the 1950s outfit. Then came the man with the top hat. Then there's the guy with headphones. Their gaze eventually shifted to mine. In unison. "You weren't supposed to see this," the woman explained. Her speech seemed overly sweet, like honey mixed with vinegar. I squirmed in my seat. Rule 1, do not leave your allotted seat. But was this my seat? The second infringement occurred when the person wearing headphones handed me a bottle of water. "Try it," he murmured. "You'll feel better." The water in the bottle was crimson. Rule 2, no eating or drinking. I declined. The boy laughed, which sounded like glass on metal. "You have already breached one rule. Why not break another? Third violation." Then I heard my name. Marcus. A woman's voice. Familiar. Mom's. I nearly turned around. Rule 3, if someone phones you, don't answer. But the voice continued, closer now, as if someone was standing behind me. "Marcus, look at me." I pinched my eyes closed. "Do not turn around. Don't respond." The last warning. Suddenly, the lights turned off. A loudspeaker crackled in the darkness, and the conductor's voice broke through the silence. "Next stop, Crossroads Junction. Passengers who break the rules will be disembarked. Early." I opened my eyes. A woman in a 1950s clothing sat next to me. She smiled. "Marcus, you've already broken 3 rules. The 4th will be the last." Her fingers brushed my shoulder. Cold. Extremely chilly. In the 5th carriage, I discovered another passenger's journal. "You're already dead, Marcus." I remembered the bad ventilation in Pet 1. There is a coppery flavor in the air. I had CO poisoning. This train wasn't for the living. The train came to a stop. The platform was massive, seemingly reaching into infinity. On it stood the dispatcher, a star-shaped creature with a visage that alternated between human and emptiness. "You can go on," he said. "Or stay." I stared at the train and the people, who moved around like shadows. "I am staying." The dispatcher grinned. "You will become the next leader. Now I greet the passengers. I establish regulations for them. I lead them to decisions. Because Crossroads Junction isn't the end. This is only the beginning. We are not alone. The rain keeps secrets.